What do you do when tensions are high and you need to stop the Cold War between the United States and Russia? You send Benedict Cumberbatch, of course. Hey everybody, what's going on? Today we are going to be talking about the based on a true story called The Courier, which stars Benedict Cumberbatch playing a salesman that gets brought into uh, the contacting of a Russian defector who is trying his hardest to give the U.S. And Britain tons of information that can hopefully stop the Cold War, and then, of course, which was leading to the Cuban Missile Crisis. I will warn you, there's going to be spoilers in this because I am going to talk about the end of the movie a little bit. I thought this was a decent spy thriller. I wouldn't say it like reinvented the wheel on anything. What you have in this is a fairly paint by numbers kind of spy thriller, but the performances are good. It keeps your attention the entire time, and it's not too long. If this movie would have went longer, it might have felt like it was dragging. But I thought it was the right amount of time for a movie like this. So anyway, I'm going to be talking about some of the plot points and everything. So there's your spoiler warning. Would I recommend this one? Maybe if it shows up on a free streaming service like a Netflix or something like that, or Hulu or HBO or whatever. It's like $7 to rent right now, which that's not a terrible price, but I don't know. I would wait for it to be cheaper before renting it. Okay, so the main crux of this story is back then, of course, they saw, Russia and the United States saw each other as a threat. They both thought they were the good guys. And of course, as this movie points out, it's like, well, your politicians hate our politicians and vice versa. But there are people that they just want peace on both sides. And that's kind of where this movie goes. When they send Benedict Cumberbatch's character to Russia, it's only supposed to be like a quick thing. He's only supposed to, contact him in there, and they just so they know they got the message that the defector had sent. Who, by the way, he was lucky that he was able to. If this movie storytelling is correct, he's pretty lucky he even got the message to the United States, because the guy finds a couple of American tourists and is like, take this to your embassy, please, now, and it's just, that would be kind of lucky if that's what really happened. But Benedict Cumberbatch's character is supposed to go over there, make contact, and in turn he invites the guy over to the United States, because part of that guy's job is to spy on the United States. So it's like they let him come over easy enough. But as time goes on, see, it was supposed to be a quick mission, but it ended up where they kept needing to send Greville Wynn, that's Benedict Cumberbatch's character. They needed to keep sending him to get more and more information. And as time goes on, the Russian government becomes very suspicious of his comings and goings. And they even kind of joke about it, saying, they say, why are you so concerned? He comes here all the time. They're like, we're concerned because he comes here all the time. So they get very suspicious, and of course that leads to the third act of the movie. But what you also have here is Oleg Penkovsky, who was the defector, and Greville Wynn. They become friends. That they realize that they both have families, they both want peace. They find so much in common that they become friends. So when it comes time that they want to just burn the operation, Benedict Cumberbatch's character's like, no, I got to go save him because he would save me. and that actually actually comes to fruition on whether or not the guy would do or say something to save his life. That actually happens in this movie in the third act. Really, again, there's not a lot of stuff that deviates from other spy thrillers that you've seen before. You have our main character has to hide things from his wife, and his wife is suspicious of it. Of course, they say that he had an affair, so she thinks he's having another affair, even though he's trying to save the world. So there's that plot going on, but again, there's a lot of mistrust, a lot of secrets being kept. There's a couple of times where he doesn't think he's going to get out of the country easy, but he does. He's just kind of nervous as he goes. But in the end, they get suspicious, and here's where we're going to get into spoiler territory, and I do need to talk about the ending a little bit. They pick up on the plan to get Oleg and his family out of the country, and they arrest him. And Wynn is kept in prison. I believe it was for like a year and a half or so. I can't remember exactly because they jump ahead in time a couple times. And then we find out whether or not Oleg would actually do or say something that would save his life. But now I'm going to talk about the ending a little bit, and it's not really the ending. It's that it's what a lot of these movies do, where it ignores history a little bit for a Hollywood happy ending. Yes, Wynn does finally get out of prison. His government trades a Russian spy for him, and he gets home, and they show him happy with his family. He's home. Well, what they don't tell you is in real life, yes, he did get home, but then he slipped into massive depression and alcoholism, and his wife divorced him. He ended up getting married again for like 20 years, and then before he died, they got divorced. So they don't tell you that that things didn't go good for him. I honestly would have liked to have seen that, because the guy was in prison for so long, and they messed with his head for so long. That has to have lasting repercussions on his mental psyche and to his life, and they just kind of seem like he's happy to be home. So that was kind of weak. I'm not saying they got to tell the whole story of his wife leaving or whatever, but the way they set up the story is that, she thinks he's such a hero, and maybe she did at the time. But again, they didn't last too much longer after he got back. So, it's just something that Hollywood seems to do. They seem to hide the dark truths of how these stories end. Did the work that they did, Wynn and Pekovsky is the work they did important? Yes, of course it is. In ways it helped to stop the Cuban Missile Crisis, but you also have the effects of what these events had on these guys. When I was reading something where he had said he had given two different accounts on what might have happened to Penkovsky. So, what truths is he telling? There's just all sorts of extra story that we didn't get even in the posts on whenever they give you here's what happened after words at the end of the movie. They just wanted more of a Hollywood happy ending, and I don't know. I think it's a disservice to history. That's one thing I'm not a big fan of biopics like this, is because they change things a little too much. I'm not saying you can't enjoy them. There's plenty of biopics where I enjoyed the movie, even though it was way different than history. But I just think in some ways it does a disservice to these characters, because it's, because you have these things that happen to them after, and they're trying to pretend like everything was, happy, joy at the end. So anyway, again, I wouldn't spend the $7 to rent this. I would wait for it to show up on whatever streaming service it shows up on for free. It's not a bad rental for $7, but there are better spy thrillers out there. There are worse ones too. Don't get me wrong, and this one's good, and the acting's good and everything. I had no fault with the performances or anything like that. I had no fault with the way the movie looked. I thought it was the right amount of time. It didn't need to be longer. It probably didn't need to be shorter because there was a lot going on. But really, it wasn't anything amazing. It was just decent. It was good. And I do recommend it, but again, wait for it to show up on some kind of a streaming service instead of renting it. Or if it's still out in the theaters, which I think it is in some, if you got like an A-list, go see it that way. That way you're not really spending any money on it. But again, not a bad spy thriller, but there are better ones out there. Till next time, see you later.